Hi there, you're watching Dukascopy TV and I'm Darren McDermott. I have Patrizio Merciai in the studio from GONET CIE to have a look at growth in UK, Eurozone and the US. Welcome today.
Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon.
So Patrizio, first of all, looking at the UK. Now, things are looking very positive, and do you think it has already gained the economic level it had before the crash? And do you think maybe growth will slow a little bit?
That's already a lot of questions there, but it's true. I mean, the UK has been one of the most buoyant economies in the world as of today. And yeah, depending how you measure it, it's back to pre-crisis levels. I mean, for instance, consumer confidence, for instance, is very strong. So I think it's quite okay. Now, as you mentioned it could slow down a bit. And one of the reasons is, I mean, one of the worrying signs is what's happening in credit, especially in mortgages. I mean, house prices are going up, and it's good for confidence, it's good for the wealth effect and so on. But at the same time, credit growth is slowing, so houses are less affordable. I mean, it may be okay for some districts of London or central London or something, but probably it will slow down at some point. I mean, also the Bank of England will see what will be out with the inflation report, but I mean, the Bank of England will not increase their stimulus anyway. So I think, okay, probably it will remain the strongest economy in Europe and one of the strongest in the world, but probably it will have to pause a bit for breath.
All right, and now moving over to the US. Now, what are your thoughts on what we're seeing with the US, with growth and, of course, corporate earnings? Do you think they will remain strong despite concerns for economic growth south of the border?
Well, south of the border, I mean, we can start with, since you mentioned it, south of the border, okay, you probably mean Mexico especially, and there obviously there has been a lot of production being moved, but not directly from the US to Mexico, but mostly from China and the rest of Asia back to Mexico. So in a sense, it's re-industrializing America. It's repatriating production which was moved abroad closer to the end market. And I think that's a positive trend. First of all, because Chinese labor costs have risen a lot. So depending on which production, which industry, Mexico is more competitive than China. And obviously you have shorter supply lines, so less logistical problems, less transportation costs, less energy use, so it's good for the environment. So I think that's a positive trend. And Mexico has been, the economy has been volatile, but it's well supported. There has been a lot of structural reform there, so I think it's good for Mexico and it's good for the US. Now, since you mentioned, I mean, US earnings, I think if you look at what's happening domestically in the US, productivity is a bit on a seesaw because, there's been weather related and so on.
Of course, for instance, the best example for that is retail sales. The beginning of the year, the weather had a huge impact on retail sales, saw very bad data coming out. Then it got better with the weather. But what happened recently?
It's a bit of a surprise because it's a bit weaker than expected. But we don't have all the details to know exactly what happened. But what I suspect is that, okay, as you mentioned, March was very strong. That's a bounce back. And now, obviously, also depending on the date of Easter and so on, there's a lot of factors there. After that bounce back, we are back to a normal level. Well, I would not build too much into one figure because all the other indicators have been strong. I mean, employment has been strong. Wages are not growing very fast, but I mean, the total payroll has been increasing. Confidence is quite okay. You also have a move more into big ticket items, so it shows more consumer confidence to spend on household items or cars or what have you. And for instance, car sales have been growing much faster in the US than in China, for instance. So I would say it's good for overall growth. I mean, growth has been consumer-led and will be consumer-led in the US. So domestically it's good. Still companies can keep costs under control by keeping some production outside the borders, especially to Mexico, south of the border. And so it's good anyway for the margins. I mean, corporate margins are very at record high. At a record high in the US. Everyone is expecting them to come down, but they don't come down. So US companies are very profitable overall, and especially the listed companies in the index.
Okay, we mentioned retail sales in the US. Moving over to Europe, of course, we saw very positive retail sales, grew at the fastest pace now in 3 years, which is great news. We love positive news like this. And of course, you know, a sign that people are going out, buying more things, being much more bullish about an economic recovery in Europe. Now, do you think this mentality, this sentiment will actually continue?
I can sense that you speak from experience. I mean, you've seen people around you getting more confidence. I think yes, it will continue, but it continues at different paces in different countries, so to speak. I think the most important things probably is the recovery in the south or in the periphery, where really you had, I would say, the worst part of the austerity program is over. You have a pickup also in the activity because those regions are now more competitive, so some production has been moved towards them, and so there is a sense really of relief and a sense of recovery there. Obviously, purchasing power is not increasing, has not increased very much, but confidence definitely is there. And now if you look at the other side of the equation, it will be Germany. Foreign part, or the international looking part, outward looking part of Germany has been a bit under pressure because China has been slower. Germany is a big exporter to China. You have also the Russian factor, which has been, Russia has been weaker with all the geopolitical issues and so on. But at the same time, domestic economy in Germany has improved. Wages have been increased quite strongly, so there's a lot of purchasing power there. There's a lot of firepower, so to speak. So I mean that's still the biggest economy in Europe. So I think also it's quite strong. What's maybe a bit of a concern, but we'll see that in the data later this week, is what happens in the countries in between, like France, for instance, which is still, you don't sense a lot of recovery in confidence, so to speak. But I would say that the core of Europe is getting better, or is staying its course, and the periphery is really improving in terms of confidence and in terms of relaxation of former austerity.
Patrizio, thank you very much.
Most welcome, thank you.
Now viewers, if you enjoyed this interview, then make sure you click back to the website as we have plenty more interviews you can take a look at. Goodbye for now.